Hong Kong crisis continues to spiral with protests at the airport grabbing global headlines. But what is the root cause of the hostility? How are these youth being educated? Meantime, the trade war sizzles as well. Was it really a fear of ruining the Christmas shopping season that motivated Washington to postpone its plan to tariff more Chinese products? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Qiuyuan, sitting in for Liu Xin. Up first, though, we take a look at the Hong Kong educational system and what more can be done for local youth. Joining me for discussion are from Hong Kong, Cheung Siu Wai, a senior lecturer at Hong Kong Baptist University. And here in our Beijing studio, Anna Lo, a Hong Kong student at Tsinghua University. And also in Hong Kong, Mr. Wu Bijian, a committee member of Hong Kong Federal of Education Workers. Welcome. So influences of these violent protests on Hong Kong industry starts to emerge. According to Hong Kong's airport authority, a total of 979 flights have been cancelled since last Friday. And there is also a clear decline in numbers of tourists, down by 31% in the first 5 days of August. And as the situation gets more heated, 20 countries have issued different levels of warnings for tourists. But some analysts still believe that these riots are, quote, a storm in a teacup. Let me start with you, Mr. Wu. How do you see it? Obviously, you live in Hong Kong, you work in Hong Kong. How do you evaluate the current situation?
I think that this violent action should be suspended in the cities. And most of you know that Hong Kong is ruled by law, and all the citizens should obey the law. And I think the action in the airport and the streets and the violence protection should be far away from our core values. Yeah.
And now pro-establishment lawmakers, business community, public servant organizations, as well as many other Hong Kong locals have voiced out to condemn violent incidents and to support SAR government and the police. Professor Zhang, does that mean the mood is now starting to change?
I think there are some changes. Some more people are more sympathetic to the people who could not reach their destination by airlines. However, it remains to be seen whether this would stop people who continue to create some of the chaos during these days. And also, it also depends on the night. In the evening, especially over the weekends, in the evening, some people would come out. And those people in black shirts would come to certain police stations and block certain roads, and that would also cause some of the traffic delays and inconvenience to people, as well as to damage the economy. So far as we learn from all these officials, there are certain signs that the Hong Kong economy is weakening, but mainly it's not the big issue. The big issue is for job opportunities, because some of the small stores would suffer much, and these stores probably would have to close or fire some people, let people go because they could not have the customers. And that also remains to be seen.
Right. Instability could seriously undermine the reputation of Hong Kong in terms of business environment. And former Hong Kong leader Cheung Wai recently said he was saddened by the recent violent protests in the city and believed that teaching liberal studies at secondary schools were partly to blame. A spokesperson of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office of the State Council also said last week that there are problems with the Chinese national education in Hong Kong. Professor Zhang, is that what we see, is what we are seeing now in Hong Kong a result of its education?
I think education is an issue, but mainly there are other issues. And most people would think that along with education, there is also the issue of job opportunity and upward mobility. Some of the people feel very frustrated because they don't see their career path going up. And this is not the issue of Hong Kong. It's the issue of many advanced societies when their industrial job left. And now they have several key structures reform gone underway. But in Hong Kong, we don't see this. So Hong Kong doesn't have a very advanced high-tech industry That is why the young people were not recruited by these kind of institutions and companies like in Shenzhen.
Right. So the FAR government had planned to introduce the moral and national education subject in primary schools. That was in 2012, and secondary schools in 2013, and carried out a 4-month consultation in 2011. But following the opposition from the public, together with a large scale of protests, the government postponed the commencement of the subject. Mr. Wu, why do Hong Kong people oppose to national education? Has national education been stigmatized in Hong Kong?
I think why they do not want to the national education is that they have no such a clear curriculum for them to learn the country, my country, systematically. So I think that it is a main problem for the students not to know the lesson very much. So I think that the government should do more about to raise the interest for the students to know more about our country. It is the responsibility of the government.
And Anna, some analysts believe that the lack of national education in Hong Kong, as you mentioned, has weakened Hong Kong youngsters' identity towards the nation. You're in college now. You know, some of your peers may only see themselves as Hong Kongers, but not as Chinese. What are your thoughts when you're hearing such comments?
I think it's totally logical for my friends to see themselves as just Hong Kongers but not Chinese, is because of historic reasons and because of many, you can see movies and books that try to portray Hong Kong as just being Hong Kongers, not Chinese. And in response to what Mr. Wu's just said, I think national education has indeed been stigmatized because it's closely related to what we call patriotism, and patriotism is not a really positive word in Hong Kong youngsters' eyes. So I believe that's also one of the reasons, and also why Hong Kong youngsters tend to not recognize themselves as part of Chinese, because also in our liberal studies curriculum we're also taught a lot about what is happening in China, mostly negative, and I think this is heavily affecting our core values and our views on mainland China.
Mr. Zhang, what's your reaction to this? Being patriotic is not seen as a positive word in Hong Kong among youngsters?
I think the connotation of patriotism and nationalism is somewhat mixed, not clearly separated in the proper context. In Hong Kong, patriotism doesn't really mean to have the loyalty to the government. And in mainland China, people would like to think that since the Communist Party took over China in 1949 and liberated the people and become the ruling party, and for all these years it was the Communist Party that led China to today. So in mainland China this is a commonly accepted fact, but in Hong Kong there is no tradition of teaching that, and Hong Kong people here got in the past got the curriculums which were partly designed to fit the situation there at that time. Now it is different. So the curriculum issue is one thing, and the teacher who teaches these courses is another issue, because the people who teach this must believe in themselves about all these things and believe in what they are preaching. So this is another issue, because the people don't really believe in that and don't like this. So it will take time for these things to change, and I don't think there is a quick solution in the near future that we can do this. I don't think that's possible.
And as a former colony, Mr. Zhang, what kind of education is really needed most in Hong Kong? What do you think?
I think the education system here has two different purposes. One is to provide the general knowledge about how to be a good person, how to contribute to the society. Another part is the specific knowledge that they will apply for their future jobs. I think in the second part, it is quite good, and the Hong Kong education system doesn't need to do a lot of reform. As for the first part, I think every time, every different age will create some of the new thinking and the new trends. I think on that part, probably there will be some new changes, and relatedly to that, some of the reforms should be added to the current system. But I'm not in the primary and the secondary school education system, so I don't really know what kind of specific proposals should be added to that.
All right, there's certainly no quick fix, but we're going to watch what's going to happen next. Thank you very much for Mr. Wu Bijian and Mr. Cheung Siu Wai joining me via satellite in Hong Kong, and Anna Lo joining me in our Beijing studio.